Dear students, welcome to UGC EPG Patashala on Human Rights and Duties. My name is Professor YSR Murthy. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Human Rights Studies, OP Jindal Global University. Today, in this module, we are going to take up Paris Principles, which talk about the National Human Rights Commissions and the essential characteristics which these commissions should have. In the earlier modules, we have seen the role of legislature, the role of executive, and the role of judiciary. In the national human rights protection system, in addition to these three wings of the state, the national human rights institutions are at a pivotal place in the entire system, complementing the efforts of these three other wings. And these national human rights commissions act as a bridge between, on the one hand, the state, and on the other, the civil society. And they have a critical role in the protection and promotion of human rights. And in the year 1991, an international conference was organized in Paris to understand and to deliberate on the key elements which every national human rights commission should possess. And they came out with 6 principles, and these were adopted in the year 1993, and they are known as Paris Principles. At the end of this module, you will learn the context in which the Paris Principles evolved, and also realize their critical role in shaping national human rights institutions across the world. And you will also appreciate the 6 basic principles evolved by the Paris Declaration and understand their meaning and import. And you will also learn the working of the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions in the task of accreditation of NHRIs. And this accreditation is done according to the established Paris Principles. And ever since 1993, what have been the achievements of these Paris Principles and the challenges that lie ahead? As I have mentioned, in the national human rights protection system, the national human rights institutions have an important role to play, as their core mandate involves protection and promotion of human rights. And NHRIs are required to be independent institutions which are given the responsibility of protecting, monitoring, and promoting human rights in a country. In fact, their work also involves research, training, awareness, documentation, handling of complaints, among other things. The Paris Principles are the foundation on which the National Human Rights Institution should function for better protection and promotion of human rights. In fact, every national institution across the world should have these, should be founded on these principles. These Paris Principles list the functions of the commissions. They discuss the composition, status, and the role which these national human rights institutions should perform. They serve as a minimum standard that all NHRIs must meet, and they were adopted by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, organized an international workshop on national institutions for promotion and protection of human rights, which was held at Paris in the year 1991, and these principles subsequently came to be known as the Paris Principles. All national human rights commissions go through an accreditation process, which is done by the Subcommittee on Accreditation of the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions, or in short, GUNRI. They are supposed to comply with the standards set up by the Paris Principles, which is a main requirement of accreditation, and it regulates the access of national human rights institutions to the United Nations Human Rights Council. The NHRIs are supposed to comply with the standards set by Paris Principle, which is a main requirement of the accreditation, and it regulates the access of the national human rights institution to the United Nations Human Rights Council. And the Paris Principles also direct the NHRIs to protect, promote human rights, work with other international and national bodies for these promotion and protection tasks. These include international bodies, these include NGOs and others, effective cooperation with non-governmental organizations, trade unions, social scientists, social organizations, philosophers, professors, and experts are required. What are these Paris Principles? There are 6 in number. They cover broad mandate, autonomy, independence, pluralism, and adequate resources, adequate powers of investigation. Every national commission is required to have these 6 principles and guided by these 6 principles. First, let us take up mandate. A national institution shall be given as broad a mandate as possible, which shall be clearly mentioned in the constitution or a legislative text specifying composition, the sphere of competence. In other words, there should not be any limitations on the ability of the National Human Rights Commission to perform the task of protection and promotion of human rights. Second, let us turn to the issue of autonomy. Every NHRI should have some structural and procedural factors which are set out either in the constitution or in the statute to ensure their operational independence from the government. Autonomy includes both functional as well as operational autonomy as well as financial autonomy. Third is a principle of independence. The National Human Rights Institution should have their own sphere of competence, which should be clearly mentioned in the statute and legislation. It should have a clear authority to examine any human rights issue, and that falls within its sphere of competence and that falls within its jurisdiction. The NHRI should have operational and financial independence. For instance, in the Protection of Human Rights Act, there are certain provisions about the removal of members, and they are so set that the Commission continues to enjoy its independence, and it should have ability to make its own rules governing procedure and shouldn't be influenced by any external authority. In other words, the NHRI should have a separate legal personality to undertake independent responsibilities. Fourth, let us take up this principle of pluralism. This principle of pluralism provides that the composition of National Human Rights Institution should reflect the social diversity of the country in which it is established. Every country has a linguistic, religious, and other minorities. There's a women, men, and a cross segment of public, all of them should be represented in the composition of senior members or commissioners as well as the staff. This principle of pluralism can also be achieved by using advisory councils of the Commission to widen the scope of operation by including representations from NGOs, trade unions, or professional associations. This principle is very important, for it enhances the credibility of the institutions and thereby leads to effective cooperation. The principle of pluralism is extremely important. For instance, if there is a commission and let's say there is a chairperson and members, and if all of them were to be men, what about women who hold 50% of the population? Let's say a situation relating to communal riots and which affects both men and women. And when a commission undertakes a fact-finding investigation, maybe women would be in a position to express their violations in a better manner had there been a woman member as a part of the fact-finding team. And in a likewise, the representation of persons belonging to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, persons with disabilities, and other segments of the let's say religious, linguistic, ethnic minorities, it gives certain confidence to the general public. It gives certain confidence to the civil society to approach the Commission for redressal of human rights violations. Often one finds that this principle of pluralism is not maintained, and of course it is not possible to enshrine a perfect pluralism and give representation to the widest section of the general public. But every effort should be made to have as perfect as possible representation to various sections of the general public. Next, we take up the issue of adequate resources. The Paris Principles require that all NHRIs should have sufficient funding to allow it to perform its core functions of protecting and promoting human rights. The source of funding should be such that it should not be reduced arbitrarily, it should not be at the whims and fancies of the government of the day, and it should be provided in the statute itself, and it should be guaranteed, and the minimum funding should be given to the national human rights institutions to enable them to perform all the functions which are mentioned in their founding statute, and the commissions should have control over their own finances and expenditure to make them financially autonomous. They should prepare their own budget, which is to be submitted directly to the Parliament, and the Parliament should have an ability to vote, approve these funding to the commissions. The funding for NHRI provided for in the enabling statute should also be secure and should not be subject to arbitrary reductions. In fact, such a provision will enable the national human rights institutions to take decisions critical of the government without any effect on its resources. Often in practice, one finds that when a human rights commission takes a stand which is against the liking of the government of the day, the tendency on the part of the executive is to cut the staff drastically by 20%, 30%, and cripple the commission. Often, when the commissions take an independent stand against the government of the day, their funding can also be cut significantly, as had happened in a number of countries across the world. And that is why it's very important that the commission should be given adequate funding, and the demands for grants are voted by the parliament. And it's not enough to tell a commission the range of functions which they are required to fulfill, but they should also be given funds to perform these functions, and they should have the independence to decide what priorities will be accorded in the spending of these funds for the purposes of protection and promotion of human rights. And this is an extremely critical area, and if national human rights institutions have their secure funding, and it matters a great deal for their eventual success. Now, let us take the last sixth principle of investigation. The national human rights institutions should have adequate powers of investigation. For instance, often human rights violation complaints require independent fact-finding, and the commission should be enabled to investigate any manner of human rights violation if the matter is within its jurisdiction, either suo motu, that is, in other words, by taking a cognizance of its own based on a media report, based on a complaint by a petitioner, or on the request made by the government. It should not need permission from a higher authority to initiate investigation. Why is this principle important? If you refer a complaint of human rights violation committed by security forces back to them, there can be an attempt to brush it aside, sweep it under the carpet, or fudge the facts. And that's where an independent investigation is required. And that's why every National Human Rights Commission should have an independent investigation wing which is answerable, which is accountable to the commission alone. And when one goes to the fact finding at the ground level, the facts might be different from what the authorities would like everyone to believe. And this is where an independent investigation can unravel the truth, and can also see that the perpetrators of human rights violations are held to account and the ends of justice are served. Now, having seen these 6 Paris principles, let us turn our attention to the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions, or in short, GANHRI. This Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institution was earlier on known as the International Coordinating Committee of National Human Rights Institutions, or ICC in short. It was established in 1993 as a network of all NHRIs and which are established to protect and promote human rights in any country at the global level. And in the last several years, ICC has done creditable work, and now it has been replaced by GANHRI or GANHRI. And what are the functions of this GANHRI? This body facilitates and supports national human rights institutions' engagement with the United Nations Human Rights Council and other treaty bodies. Second, it encourages cooperation and it encourages information sharing amongst the national human rights institutions, including through an annual meeting and a biennial conference of all NHRIs across the world. It undertakes accreditation of national human rights institution, and we will see this accreditation in greater detail in the subsequent section. And it promotes the role of NHRIs within the United Nations and with states and other international agencies. The GANDRI offers capacity building in collaboration with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, or OHCHR. It assists NHRIs under threat. For instance, there have been many occasions where NHRIs, by virtue of taking an independent stand, are threatened by governments, and if they are requested, it can assist NHRI, governments to establish NHRIs. GANDRI works through a governance mechanism which includes a general meeting of all national institutions, and then there is a bureau which comprises, which is in short a committee of 16 members, and then there are regional coordinating committees in Asia Pacific, Europe and other regions, and then there is an ICC chairperson and then an ICC Geneva representative, which together is the governance structure of GANDRI. And then let's now turn our attention to accreditation. The main function of Global Alliance of NHRI is to accredit the commissions with respect to their compliance with the basic requirements set out in the Paris Principles. This function is carried out by the Subcommittee on Accreditation, and the procedure by which the NHRIs are accredited is also decided by the Subcommittee on Accreditation, and this accreditation is extremely important and critical. And to make the system of accreditation more effective, the accreditation granted to each commission is reviewed once in every 5 years, and basically to see whether they are truly complying with the Paris Principles or not, and in case they are not complying, to review their accreditation status. The current accreditation process classifies all the commissions into 3 different categories. There's A, B and C. The category A is regarded as a voting member with full voting rights at the Human Rights Council meeting. The category B is for observer, and category C is a non-member. The observers have a right to participate in the Geneva Human Rights Council meetings. To sum up, all NHRIs should be founded on 6 Paris Principles, which are broad mandate, they should have autonomy, they should have independence, there should be pluralism in the composition of the commission, and they should be vested with adequate resources and also adequate investigation powers in order to perform the full range of functions which have been given to these commissions. Human rights have always been an area of core concern for the United Nations. But since the adoption of Paris Principles in 1993, the focus has shifted from adopting conventions and treaties on human rights to their enforcement or implementation through domestic institutions, which are established to function as the promoter and protector of human rights at the national level. Today, the Paris Principles serve as a basis and foundation for the engagement of NHRIs at the global level, and 24 years have passed since the adoption of these Paris Principles, and in these 24 years, a lot has happened to improve the human rights standards across the world through the mechanism of NHRIs. So that's why the Paris Principles remain as relevant as they used to be in the year 1993, becoming even more significant in the contemporary times, though some new problems have emerged, imposing new challenges on the NHRIs. For instance, in a conflict situation, what ought to be the role of these commissions? So in fact, conflicts relate to violations of human rights. So that's why the NHRIs have a pivotal role in the prevention of future conflicts, and they can also contribute in a significant manner to the post-conflict peace building. Thank you.